Hey, I'm Alan. I'm a certified counsellor, and today we're going to be talking about something that sounds really simple, but a lot of people do struggle with it. So how do you find a decent counsellor? Not just somebody with a website, not somebody with a qualification, but somebody who is actually a really good fit for you. Because the reality is, choosing a counsellor is personal. You're not buying a product, you're choosing somebody. You might talk about the most vulnerable parts of your life. So today I'm going to walk you through what to look for, what questions to ask, red flags to avoid, the difference between qualifications, how to know if it is working, and how to trust your instincts in the process. So whether you're looking for yourself, your teenager, somebody you care about, this will help you make an informed decision. So let's start with something that's really important. So most people begin by searching something like counselor near me or therapy near me. That's fine, but I personally believe it's not the best starting point. Instead, ask yourself, what I'm actually really struggling with. Is it anxiety, burnout, grief, addiction, relationship conflict, trauma, feeling stuck, or even a major life change? Different counsellors have different strengths. Some focus heavily on trauma, some are great with couples, and some primarily work with teenagers, and some specialise in addiction or neurodivergence, and some focus more on short-term practical strategies, and other work on long-term and deep strategies. So before you look for a person, get very clear on the issue that you're needing counselling for. You don't need a perfect label, just a good general sense. Because a counsellor who specialises in relationship therapy might not be the best person for complex trauma, and somebody who focuses on executive coaching might not be the best fit for grief work. Clarity first, then search for your ideal counsellor. And of course, understand the different types of professionals. And this part, a lot of people do get a little bit confused about. So in Australia, you'll see titles like psychologist, clinical psychologist, counsellor, psychotherapist, social worker, and mental health occupational therapist. And well, here is the simple version. Psychologists are regulated by APRA. Clinical psychologists, they have additional training in complex mental health conditions. Counsellors and psychotherapists focus on talk therapy and emotional support, and many have extensive training and experience, but they are not registered through APRA. They are usually members of professional bodies like ACA, PACFA, CPCA, like myself. Social workers often work in both community settings and private practice, and many provide excellent therapy. And mental health occupational therapists often focus on the functional capacity, routines, daily living skills, and emotional regulations. So which is better? Well, none are automatically better. What matters more is their training, their experience, their approach, and their fit with your needs. Sometimes you need an assessment and a diagnosis. In that case, you may need to go down a psychologist route, which may be more appropriate. Sometimes you need a steady, practical, emotional support. Well, consider a counsellor. And sometimes you need highly specialised trauma treatment that might require somebody specifically trained in trauma modalities. So don't get caught up in that one little title. Look what they actually do. Look beyond their websites, because honestly, websites can look very polished, and they can also be very vague. So when you're reading somebody's website, look for that clarity. If they do not clearly explain what they help with, do they describe how they work? Do they mention specific approaches like CBT, solution-focused therapy, EMDR, ACT, or emotion-focused therapy? And do they sound grounded and clear, or overly fluffy? You're looking for specificality, transparency, professional boundaries, and their sense of personality. And you should also answer the question after reading their website. What would it actually be like to sit in a room with that person? If that website feels generic, well, it could apply to absolutely anyone. And that may be a sign the professional is not really clear in their positioning. Clarity usually reflects confidence and experience. So ask about their approach as well. If you email or call a counsellor, it's okay to ask, what is your approach? Have you worked with this issue before? How do you structure your sessions? And what does progress usually look like? You're allowed to ask questions, and a good counsellor, they won't be defensive. They should be able to explain their approach in very plain language. For example, I tend to focus on practical strategies while also exploring underlying patterns. Or I work with you at your pace. We'll first build stability, and then we'll explore those deeper issues. Or my work is short-term and goal-focused. Or I specialise in trauma and use specific evidence-based models. If they can't clearly explain how they work, that's something to notice. So consider the practical fit as well. And this does get overlooked. Location, availability, cost, telehealth, or even in person, after-hour options, and cancellation policies. If somebody is excellent but can only be available through your work hours and you can't attend, well, that could create you some stress. If somebody is outside of your budget long term, that does matter as well. And if you need regular sessions and they're fully booked for 2 months, that matters as well, because therapy works best when it is consistent. Choose somebody whose structure actually fits your life. The first session, is an assessment for both of you. And here's something I believe is really, really important. The first session is not them assessing you. You're also assessing them. Ask yourself after the first session, did I feel heard? Did they interrupt consistently? Did they talk about themselves too much? Did I feel judged, or did I feel rushed? And did they seem present? Did they explain confidentiality clearly, and did they ask about safety appropriately? You don't need to feel instantly comfortable sharing everything. That is a little bit unrealistic. But you should feel respected, taken seriously, not shamed, and not minimized. Sometimes people leave the first session thinking, that was fine, but something felt a little bit off. Trust that. You're allowed to try somebody else. So red flags to watch for. Let's talk honestly about this. Red flags can include guaranteeing results. You see this all the time on social media. Pushing you into long-term packages immediately, oversharing personal stories, invalidating your experiences and blaming you, breaking boundaries, poor communication, unclear fees, no clear cancellation policies, and no discussion of confidentiality. Another red flag is when everything is about their method. If a practitioner seems more invested in their technique than you as a person, that is worth noticing. Therapy is about relationships first. So how do you know if it is working? This is a huge thing. People often expect dramatic breakthroughs in the very first session. And sometimes therapy, well, it is quieter than that. Progress can look like, well, you responded differently in conflict. You feel less reactive. You sleep better. You understand your triggers and you set boundaries, and you feel less overwhelmed, and you make one hard decision you're avoiding. It's not those emotional fireworks. Ask yourself every few sessions, am I gaining insight? Am I learning new tools? Do I feel slightly more stable than before? And if after several sessions you feel stuck, you can talk to your counsellor about that. A good therapist welcomes conversation, and you're allowed to change counsellors as well. This needs to be said very clearly. If it is not a fit, well, of course, you can leave. You're never stuck with the one counsellor. You don't owe the counsellor loyalty if it is not working. You can say, I think I need a different approach, or I appreciate your time, but I'd like to try somebody else. Professionals understand this. And sometimes the issue is not competence, it's that chemistry. And therapy relies heavily on the therapeutic relationship. And special considerations for teenagers as well. If you're looking for a counsellor for a teenager, really consider, do the counsellor have experience with adolescents? How do they balance confidentiality with parental involvement? And how do they handle risk and safety? Teens need autonomy in sessions, and if a practitioner constantly reports every single detail back to the parent, the young person, well, then more likely than not, they won't open up. At the same time, safety must be managed appropriately. So ask yourself, how do they handle that balance? And if you're using NDIS, and if you're accessing support through NDIS or insurance, make sure you check that the provider is registered or unregistered. Do they align with funding categories, and do they provide reports if required? And are their services within the scope of your plan? Administrative clarity really does matter as well. Therapy should never create funding stress, and always trust your instincts. This might be the most important point. You can read qualifications and you can read reviews and you can compare approaches, but ultimately how you feel in the room really does matter. Do you feel safe enough to be honest? Do you feel respected? Do you feel like the person actually sees you? That doesn't mean comfortable all the time. No. Growth can be uncomfortable, but it has to be safe. There's the difference. Finding a counsellor isn't about choosing the most impressive bio. It's about finding the right fit for your needs, your personality, and your goals. Take your time, ask questions, and trust your instincts. And remember that reaching out at all is already a significant step. If you found this information helpful, please make sure you share this video to somebody who might be searching for a counsellor right now. And if you're considering support for yourself, take the next step. Research, make the call, and book that appointment. You don't have to have it all figured out right now before you start. I'll see you in the next video.